This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
Introducing the perfect companion to your morning listening routine. AG1's clinically backed formula is now flavor-packed with 3 new delicious flavors: tropical, berry, and citrus. Start the day on a high note with probiotics that taste like the tropics. Mix it up with micronutrients that taste like berry or citrus. And take it all the way back with the classic, AG1 Original, with notes of pineapple and vanilla. Do your health a flavor, or 4, with AG1 Next Gen, the daily health drink. Learn more at drinkag1.com.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay, welcome back, my fellow samurai, to the Ghost of Tsushima Yotei Gamecast. I'm your host, Andrew Zink, and I cannot believe I am welcoming you back for episode 15, Act 3, Main Story, Part 1. I cannot believe that it's actually been 20 episodes of this podcast so far, with the 15 main Ghost of Tsushima game episodes and 5 bonus episodes we've done about some of the Ghost of Yotei content we've gotten so far. And I can't believe we are finally starting Act 3. I'm really excited to do it. I think Act 3 takes a huge turn in the story that I certainly didn't expect to be as drastic as it was. So let's just dive right into it. So the first quest in Act 3's main story is called Honor and Ash. And boy, does it feel that way, because, Act 2 ends with Jin being taken prisoner by Lord Shimura, the declaration from the Shogun that Jin can be adopted as Lord Shimura's son is burned in a fire, as Jin is imprisoned for using poison, wolfsbane poison, against the Mongol forces to retake Castle Shimura's main keep, so that a bunch of soldiers on the Japanese side wouldn't be lost in a head-on attack. So that is what has happened in the main story so far. And I had a ton of thoughts about this that I said in the Act 2 story, and you'll hear a lot more of that throughout this episode. So let's just dive right in. This quest starts right away with a view of looking out a prison window. Like, there's some bars. They're not metal bars, they're like wooden, but, so you can see that Jin is in a prison. It's kind of more like a room that, he just is a prison for him. So, Jin wakes up to start this quest, and he is on a sleeping mat, and this is actually a semi-nice room. I mean, this is not like, a dungeon at the bottom of a castle or anything. It's still a pretty nice room. But so it's very dark. It's not well lit. There's a prison looking door in there, barred door and barred windows. So Jin is wearing a casual robe with no armor and no weapons. All your gear is gone. And right away I panicked, because I was like, no, all my gear. Spent all this time getting it together. Spent a lot of flowers on some of those sword kits, especially that tiger one. That looks really funny on the sword. So eventually, you wake up, and Kenji then walks in to talk to this guard outside your door. And he says that Lord Shimura asked him to deliver sake as a reward for helping to retake his home. So Kenji convinces this reluctant guard, basically saying, if you don't have some now, your friends are going to drink it all. So eventually the guy says, yeah, I haven't had anything good to drink in a while. So then he walks away. So then Kenji opens up the cell and he comes in to tell Jin to get going, basically. And Jin acknowledges that if he runs, he can never regain Lord Shimura's trust or unite all the Japanese people against the Khan. But Kenji counters that orders just came in to ship Jin to the mainland to the shogun. And he says that the people need Jin and that Yuna needs him too. And so yeah, right away I just was like, dude, seriously? Like we're gonna turn this guy who's almost single-handedly like freeing, Tsushima and stopping the Mongol invasion before it reaches the mainland, like we're gonna turn him into a criminal now? I mean, did not like this at all. But so then, Jin gets convinced by Kenji, and Kenji says that Yuna is up north tracking the Khan in the frozen wastes with Jin's sword and gear waiting for him. So yeah, Jin decides to go and tells Kenji to find Masako, Norio, and Sensei Ishikawa and get them all to Omi village so that Yuna and he can get the pass open to where Act 3 takes place, Kamiyagata, and they can get everyone through. So Kenji says that she's waiting in a village named Kin in Act 3 in Kamiyagata with his equipment. So yeah, Kenji then tells Jin that his horse is near the outer stables and that there's a damaged fence near the gate to escape from, and he says that he'll distract everyone outside, but he's going to try to get away fast. So at this point, you can start the gameplay, and you can start escaping and moving through the camp. So the weather is super dark, and it kind of looks almost like it's snow. It actually looks like sleet. Like there's like some white in it, but it looks like it's falling like rain. So it's a very dark atmosphere. And so as you're sneaking out through the inner section of the camp, you overhear Kenji talking to guards about the sake, and they're saying everything stinks of death in the fort, and it's just setting the atmosphere, for this post-battle feeling. And as you navigate through the camp, you keep hearing just like conversations from various guards, and I'll just like sum up what some of them are. But there's more guards who are saying that Shimura is planning a speech outside the main keep tonight, and that they're calling, and some of these soldiers, they're calling Jin a dishonorable dog. And really, as I was playing through this, I was like, dude, seriously? Like, I literally just saved all of you from an idiotic head-on attack, and I'm dishonorable? And once again, this is all only happening because we've been, we're under unprovoked invasion and horrific war crimes from the Mongolian army. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't have to, but yeah, so then you hear a civilian saying that Jin is not human because of the way he killed the Mongols. And then she says, "Am I safe?" And yeah, this is just another moment where I was like, dude, really? I've spent this whole time rescuing people, saving people, doing extra quests for people, like all this stuff, and you're wondering if you're safe from me? Oh my god. But yeah, this is just one of those video game stories. This is just the way it's going for now. So, you can hop up on a roof and then you go on it for a while, and you get on some high rope, and you can kind of go a ways across the camp just above the guards by hopping between roofs and the high ropes. So then on the way, you hear more samurai, and they're eager to go after the Mongols, but they say Lord Shimura is being cautious after the explosion on the bridge that happened in Act 2, in that final quest there. And so then one of the samurai says that now that Lord Shimura, that until now, Lord Shimura had no support. And then Lord Oga, who is the bannerman of the shogun who arrived with the purple armored samurai in Act 2, he's in this conversation. Then he says that Shimura wielded the combined might of 5 clans, but then lost it all in one battle. So I thought this was really interesting because Lord Oga is clearly not feeling very good about Lord Shimura's leadership. And so then the samurai that is talking, they're saying that Komoda Beach was unfortunate, but look how much has been accomplished since then. And then Lord Oga laughs and says, with a few peasants, a couple old warriors, and that unruly nephew, he concedes that Shimura has accomplished a lot with very little, but that his failures are showing. And he says that the Khan slipped through his fingers, and Lord Sakai threatens the peace that they're fighting for. And so, yeah, he says that if Shimura doesn't turn it around, that Clan Oga will be forced to finish his fight for him. So, yeah, I thought this was just very interesting because, and especially the mention of Komoda Beach and Lord Oga's, feelings on that. First of all, like, I don't know. I mean, the combined might of 5 clans at the beginning of the game was only 80 samurai. So I don't think that's necessarily Lord Shimura's fault. But absolutely, I mean, being vastly outnumbered, like, thousands and thousands to 80, and then just charging headfirst down a beach. I mean, even if you're evenly matched, charging headfirst is generally not the best solution. But, yeah, and so it was just interesting that they included this, that, an outside observer would feel like this was strategically a mishap, what happened at Komoda Beach, because that's definitely what I thought when I watched this. And then, yeah, just talking about some of the failures. And one thing that I found really frustrating about this, and I guess this is part of the game, and, this happens in real life too, but just that, like, and I've said this before, but everything Jin is doing has been totally forgotten. And, like, they're all giving Lord Shimura all this credit, and it's like, Lord Shimura really did pretty much nothing. Like, you rescued him from jail, you recruited all the people of Yarikawa. I mean, you did a lot of the fighting, you brought in the allies of Masako and Ishikawa and Norio. Like, I mean, Shimura really hasn't done that much, but he's just getting all the credit here. So I found that frustrating. But yeah, so eventually you get down from some of these high spots that you're traversing through the camp, or out of the castle, and you keep sneaking through the camp, and you hear civilians and guards saying various things about Jin poisoning the Mongols. And a samurai says that the rest of the Khan's army escaped north, and thanks to the ghost, the war could go on for months. And yeah, that was something I just did not understand, because it's like, I don't know. I mean, if it seemed like the samurai army was going to win at this castle, I think the Khan still would have escaped. Like, he still would have run away. I don't see how Jin using the poison is the reason that the Khan escaped and the war could go on for months. I just didn't get that. But again, I mean, what they're showing is that everyone's just ragging on Jin. It's like, Jin is now persona non grata among, like, the samurai and the Japanese, and there's, like, rumors about him and just all this stuff that's flying out about there, and it just is really disappointing. But yeah, so after you leave the inner courtyard and you step out to the outer courtyard, so you're getting closer to escaping, a guard suddenly shouts that Lord Sakai has escaped. So then horns start blowing and more guards come into the outer courtyard. They send people out on horseback to find Jin and, tell, like, all the other soldiers to watch the front gate. So the outer courtyard is still stormy, and you can see your horse at the stable. So for me, I named my horse Sora. So I was like, hell yeah, there's Sora, let's go. So there's more roofs and high ropes you can cross in this outer courtyard above the guards, and eventually you hop down, and then you just kind of have to, like, sneak, wait till no one's looking, and make your way over to the stables. So yeah, the samurai are burning Mongol bodies as you're passing by, and as you sneak through, you can hear them wondering how Jin escaped, and they ask if you had hurt his own Japanese, compatriots, and one of them says, well, he's already proved he has no honor. And again, as I'm just going through this, I'm just like, oh, this is so annoying. I just find this reaction to be so extreme that everyone's having, but okay. So then eventually you reach your horse. So once you reach your horse, a cutscene starts. And right away, Sora gets shot with an arrow, and you start riding off. So honestly, like, you kind of just, like, ride straight past the guards. You don't kill anyone. You don't fight anyone. Like, you kind of just get by them out the gate. So then you, get out the gate, and Sora gets hit with a few more arrows, and right away I was freaking out. I was really sad to see this. And so honestly, then Jin just kind of escapes and crosses a bridge, and the cutscene, like, cuts to black, and that's pretty much it. So then the cutscene starts again, and you've now escaped from Castle Shimura, and at this point, like, you've escaped and you're just, like, escaping along the road, and it's definitively snowing. The landscape is totally white, and you're surrounded by barren trees. it feels really dark, y'all. Feels dark and just like not good vibes at all. And the horse is walking and looking weak. And there's this like really haunting, sad vocal music that's playing as Sora collapses on the road, eventually in front of these burning trees in this like barren forest. Very sad, and you can kind of see that now your horse is dying. And Jin kneels and says sorry for being unable to protect your horse, and then your horse passes away right there on the road, and the screen cuts to white, and then it shows Jin getting up, and you can start playing, and Sora is buried right there, and you're now at a location which is called the Endless Forest, and Jin is still wearing the casual robes with no weapons, and you then immediately discover a new location which is called Loyal Friend's Grave. And this is where you officially enter Act 3. The region is called Kamiyagata. So we've had Act 1, Izuhara, Act 2, Toyotama, and Act 3, Kamiyagata. So I'm just going to take a quick second to pause here. I was upset, y'all. I could not believe this. I could not believe that my horse was dead. And at this point, like, you're an outcast. I mean, like, you have been exiled, you've been outcasted. The Japanese consider you a villain and a criminal and a traitor for some reason. And Sora is dead. I was just devastated by that. I mean, and for me, I picked Sora because, that was like a translation for Sky, and it felt really hopeful at the beginning of the game. And I was like, yeah, like we're fighting back against an invasion, and we're going to free people, and we're fighting for freedom and liberation. And to have your horse end up being killed, for just in such a way for those reasons was just really upsetting to me. And I mean, they did a great job of making the story compelling, because I certainly was feeling it. I definitely had some strong feelings about this, y'all. And we'll get to that as the story goes on. So, all right. So at this point, you enter Kamiyagata and you run towards a burning torii gate. And so, yeah, quick side note, the torii gates are those structures that have like, two pillars and then, a horizontal wooden beam on top of them that's curved. And it's kind of like, known as a very traditional Japanese structure. That's called the torii gate. So you run towards a burning torii gate and you discover the Kin Prefecture. You're now entering the Kin Prefecture in Kamiyagata. And the quest is push forward to reunite with Yuna. So as you approach this torii gate, you kind of come over this little hill and you come across the village of Kin. And it's a pretty large village, and it has been totally decimated and burned with Mongols patrolling. And you can tell that Jin is pretty shaken by this, and for good reason. I mean, I don't think there's been a scene like this yet where such a large settlement in this game has just been totally burned to the ground. And it's definitely really sad and really just shakes you. And again, just to set the scene, it's like, it's snowing and you can you can't see that far out. It's dark. This is a dark atmosphere, y'all. Like, the tone of this game has totally shifted by this point. Combine that with just everything that's happened in the story, and yeah, it is a dark tone and dark atmosphere here. So yeah, and then at the center of Kin is this massive special tree that is burning. And that's your objective. You have to get to the center of that tree. So you sneak into the village to find Yuna, and you're just navigating your way through the ruins. And Jin comments that a storm is coming, so he has to move fast. So you can only sneak because you don't have any weapons. So you basically have to spend this whole mission sneaking through tall sections of grass and hiding behind buildings and just not getting caught. And it can actually be hard. It's just about timing, but not being able to, clear any enemies does add a certain challenge that you're kind of not used to in this game so far. So yeah, eventually, you sneak through the village, and the best way around is kind of, you can go around the back, and I think that was the best way to do it. But eventually, you sneak through the village and you arrive at this huge tree and you find tons of executed, burned civilians at the center of it. And so you're like, you go inside this tree. It's like it's so big that you can walk in the middle of it. And so yeah, you find like all these executed and burned civilians. And if you examine the bodies, Jin says, he says, well, Yuna's not here. And then he says the Mongols must have rounded these people up. So then you find more bodies nearby, and they have blood, but there's no wounds. So then you eventually find a body with blood coming from the mouth, and Jin comments that it smells like his wolfsbane poison. So then he says that the Mongols learned how to make the poison, and they're clearly using it against the Japanese. And at this moment, Jin gets shot with an arrow in the back, and he starts having like distorted vision, and he's puking blood, and you realize that the Mongols are now poisoning all their arrows with the poison. So that's very not good. And as you're collapsing, you hear Yuna arrive, and then the screen cuts to white. So yeah, right away I was like, oh no. I mean, obviously it's not good that the Mongols have another weapon, but also I knew exactly where this was gonna go. That it was like, oh, now it's Jin's fault that the Mongols are using the poison. And my first thought was just like, I mean, if the Mongols were going to totally decimate and burn this whole village, I mean, they probably were just going to kill everyone there no matter what. I don't really see why, like, the use of the poison is, like, more of an indictment on Jin, but I can totally tell that's where the story was going, basically, with that. So then you wake up to a cutscene, and you're with Yuna in a hut. And Yuna and Jin basically just talk about the poison, and Yuna's glad he's alive, and she's healed you again. And again, you had an arrow, like, in your back. I don't know how your spine wouldn't be, like, permanently damaged from that, but that's what it looked like to me anyway. And so Yuna says that she saw civilians lying in pools of blood before the Mongols burned Kin. And Jin says that the only way to stop this is to kill Khotun Khan. So,
new Vitamin Water Zero Sugar Pineapple Passion Fruit is packed with vitamins. Just like the amount of peas we packed in that sentence. It's packed like your tote bag. The one you stole from your ex. Or your overpriced half a studio apartment. Or extra rushed rush hour traffic. Packed like your calendar. Triple booked at 5, of course. Grab a Vitamin Water. Did we mention it's packed with vitamins?
Hey, it's Paris. I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
Yuna says that he has taken his army to their stronghold on the coast at a place called Port Izmi. So then they talk about, like, what their next move is, and Jin says that they'll need a staging camp somewhere near Port Izmi, and Yuna says that his equipment is in a chest in this room inside this hut, and she says to meet her at a lookout tower outside when he's ready and they can start planning. So at this point, the cutscene ends, you stand up, you can start playing. So as soon as you wake up, you are now in Jogaku Prefecture at a place called Fort Jogaku, and you get your gear from inside the chest. And there's a bunch of supplies in this room. Highly recommend y'all pick all those up. Get your linens, y'all. That's important in this game. And then you walk outside, and you find Yuna at the base of this guard tower. So yeah, this Fort Jogaku, is just burned and destroyed. Again, just another place that has been burned and destroyed. There's no one left alive. Like, you're just, like, hiding out there. So Yuna tells you to climb up the guard tower and look toward the mountain, and that there is a better hideout that they can use, and you can see it from there. So then you do that, and you start surveying. And in the survey, you find Jogaku's pagoda. And Jin says, like, oh, this is defensible, and it's within striking distance of the Khan's stronghold. So we should make the Jogaku's pagoda temple our stronghold. And so the whole landscape is white and snowy. Again, very different from Act 1 and 2. Now it's cold, white, and snowy. That is how Kamiagata is. So Yuna says that Jogaku Temple is occupied by the Mongols. So then Jin says, okay, we'll clear it. So now you're getting your direction. This is going to be your first real quest in Act 3. So you start walking and talking, and Yuna says sorry about what happened to Sora upon hearing the news, and you get a new horse from the stables. Yeah, I was upset to have to get a new horse. I'll tell you, I was really upset. I was mad. I was upset. I was not okay with this, and man, I'm mad at Lord Shimura. I'm mad at the Shogun. I'm mad at everybody as this is happening. So then you ride out with Yuna. And on the way, as you're riding out to, Jogaku Temple, you pass dead bodies, and Jin wonders if they're from kin, but Yuna says she doesn't know because they've been burned. The Mongols have been burning lots of towns in the area. So Jin says that they might have caught the Khan if they had all ridden out instead of fighting each other back at Castle Shimura. And Yuna asks Jin why he surrendered to his uncle. And so here you get a dialogue choice. I love the dialogue choices, y'all. I think it's really cool. And so the dialogue choice is to save you, or to stop a civil war. So if you pick to save you, it's Jin saying he couldn't let Shimura take her because he needed someone to blame to fulfill his duty to the Shogun. And Yuna will say Shimura, I mean, this is the thing, like, no matter what you pick, you end up getting the same thing back from whoever you're talking to in this game. I actually picked to stop a civil war, and Jin said, like, well, if I ran away, it would have, like, caused factionalism, and I didn't want that. And so no matter what, Yuna says that Lord Shimura is a fool for turning against Jin. Hell yeah, he is. And Jin tells her that Lord Shimura wanted to adopt him, but he destroyed that dream. And Yuna says that, that he was right. And Jin says that being right doesn't always make things better. And Yuna then says, well, tell that to the people you saved. And she asks if Shimura would forgive him if they kill the Khan and drive the Mongols out. Obviously, I totally agree with Yuna here. And it is interesting that Jin is trying to be like kind of wise, and he's being very measured, I feel. But then you get another dialogue choice. And you can say either I hope so or I don't care. And I hope so is Jin saying that, Lord Shimura has been his mentor, his father figure, his caretaker from when he was young, and he never wanted to disappoint him. And he hopes that they can heal this wound. But Lord Shimura's forgiveness won't change who he is. And Yuna says that, Lord Shimura thinks that she corrupted him. And Jin says that he made his own choices and he would do it again, knowing the cost. So yeah, I thought that was pretty significant, just from a character perspective, that Jin feels that strongly about it. So then you start riding through, you've been riding this whole time. You start riding through an area called the Surara Otoshi Cliffs. And this is like a snowy bamboo forest. Very beautiful. Super beautiful, gotta say that. And then Yuna says that they can scout the temple grounds from this fishing village nearby. So they decide to leave their horses and go into the ice fishing village on foot. And it's on a frozen lake. So Yuna then comments that the temple is surrounded by thick forest, so that the safest approach to the temple itself is probably across the lake, because if the Mongols have archers or guards hidden in the thick forest, then they could get caught too going in. So that'd be bad. So eventually you reach the Jogaku Temple Lake, and you survey this fishing village. And so you find prisoners outside of the fishing village, and you see that they're going to freeze to death. Like, this is like, you're like in a blizzard, basically, and it truly is like a frozen wasteland in Kamiagata, at least in this season, and the prisoners are going to freeze outside. So you see the prisoners, while you keep surveying, and you notice a signal cannon. So then at this point, you start approaching the ice fishing camp. There's like 6 to 8 Mongols here. You have to defeat them before they execute the prisoners. That's one of those things where it's like, if you start the fight, they'll immediately try and kill the prisoners, and if one of them dies, then you fail the quest. You have to redo it all. But you have to clear the Mongols. It's not super hard, just a regular squad. One thing I wanted to mention is all the archers now have poison arrows. So if you get hit, then you'll lose extra health, and you'll start to have like distorted vision and such. So just cool how the enemies are changing as you go. And also the Mongols are now like mostly in yellow attire. That's what I noticed. Like, they went from red attire in Act 1 to the Khan's wolves in the blue attire in Act 2, and now they're mostly all in yellow that you see. So yeah, you clear the Mongols, then you rescue the prisoners, and one of them just says, oh, we were being worked to death, and that's it. The ice fishing village is now cleared. It wasn't huge. It was really just like a couple buildings and like a dock on this frozen village, or on this frozen lake, and that was mostly what it was. So then you can climb to the top of a rock and you can survey Jogaku Temple itself. So now we're getting a lot closer here. And if you do that, you will see that the Mongols left explosives on the ice. And like, so you're looking across the frozen lake, across the ice, to Jogaku Temple. So there's explosives between the fishing village and the temple. You find a bunch of archers watching the lake. But then Jin and Yuna come up with a plan to bring the archers out onto the ice by igniting the signal cannon at the fishing village. So instead of attacking them, instead of like them attacking the archers, they have the archers come to them, and you can then use the explosives and attack them as they're coming across the frozen lake. So yeah, at this point you can start the quest. You light the signal fire and you draw them onto the ice. So I just did this from the top of this rock, and as they get close to the explosives, you can shoot the explosive barrel cart. That takes out a lot of them, and it's kind of a long run. And so if you're just using your bow and arrow the whole time, I mean, there's about a dozen Mongols or so in total, and you can take out most of them by the time they even get close to you. So not too hard. So then after you clear that first wave, you can now advance on Jogaku Temple. And as you get close, there's like some beautiful temple buildings in the snow outside the main walls. And then you can enter the main temple by climbing this frozen waterfall in the back, like towards the from the side of the temple. And then you can get over the back temple walls that way. And so then you climb up and you sneak in, through the side of the temple, and you come upon a warlord and Mongol guards with prisoners. And so like you come out at this specific spot where the Mongol warlord's back is turned to you. So you can like the game wants you to use the slaughter function where you come up behind a leader and you kill them with the slaughter function, and then you get the ghost mode automatically, and all the Mongols like start running. So yeah, there's like a dozen or so Mongols here, and you can take out a lot of them pretty quick having the ghost mode and such. And you just free the prisoners, make sure that none of them die. And the hostages are monks here. They don't really say too much after you rescue them. And then at this stage, you've pretty much cleared Jogaku Temple, and that's pretty much it. So you talk to Yuna to end the quest, and she says that there's no more Mongols, the temple's cleared, and this first stage of their plan is now complete. So Yuna says that Lord Shimura, she says to Jin that Shimura chose his path and that Jin chose his. And Jin says that, he says that Khotun Khan studied Shimura's tactics and knows how to break an army of samurai, but he doesn't know how to defend against them and their ghost tactics. And then they both say that they will bring the hurt to Khotun Khan for Taka and everyone else has suffered along the way. And that is the end of this quest. This is the end of the first quest, Honor and Ash. So yeah, I mean, wow, what a crazy quest to start Act 3. Like, it just shows you, it's like you're starting Act 3 totally on your own, and it's a much darker tone and scene, and I really felt this emotionally. I'll just say that much. I really did feel this. So, yeah, and one last thing I wanted to mention here, you are now exiled from Act 1 and 2. You cannot go back to them until you beat the game. And this was something I actually did not know, because I wanted to finish the main story in Act 2, and then I was going to do some of the mythic tales and the side quests in Act 2. I did not know that I was going to be exiled from Act 2, and then you're like forced to leave all that behind till the game is done. I'd say the biggest reason that was unfortunate for me is because I hadn't done the mythic tales in Act 2, and that's where you can get the Dance of Wrath mythic tale move in Act 2, and that's just like an awesome move to have for the whole game, and I unfortunately just didn't have that till after I beat the main story. But yeah, so hey, if y'all are listening to this and you haven't yet played this game, or you haven't yet started Act 3 or whatever, make sure you do that before you leave Act 2. So yeah, at this point we'll move on to the next quest, which is Wolves at the Gates. So at this point you're now starting to put together your assault against Khotun Khan at Port Izmi. So Wolves at the Gates, you start this quest by talking with Yuna at Jogaku Temple. It's still snowing, very cold, just like super cold atmosphere, much different from the rest of the game. And Yuna says that they can use the old road from Omi up through Fort Kaminadake, but it's held by the Mongols. So what she's saying is that like now they want to bring all the allies up from Toyotama in Act 2, but they need to have a route to do it. And that Fort Kaminadake is like an old road along the western coast that they can use, but they have to clear the fort first. So this is going to be one of your next quests here. So she says that they would need help to drive off the Mongols at Fort Kamidadake, but Yuna says that she knows some hunters camped on Mount Sago. Their leader is named Takashi, and Jin asks if they are friends, and she says no, but he has good archers and will do anything that she asks. So Yuna says that while Jin is doing that, she will slip through Castle Shimura to meet the other allies in Omi village, and Jin tells her to attack the fort from the south with them, while he will attack from the north with the hunters. And they tell each other to be careful, and it's just like a tender moment, which is nice. So yeah, now this is moving ahead, and I was excited to see, like what was next with this. Now, one thing I wanted to say, you get 2 quests, and it's Wolves at the Gates and Gathering Storm. You can do either one first or second. You don't have to do one before the other, but I did Wolves at the Gates first, and I think a lot of people do. So then you ride out to Mount Sago to meet up with the hunters. So Takeshi's camp is at the top of Mount Sago, beautiful area, and again, a bit barren, but still pretty in its own way. And so you arrive at this camp, there's archers practicing, there's tents set up, there's civilians working, and there's merchants present. So then you talk to Takeshi, and Jin says that Yuna sent him, and he seems glad that, Takeshi seems glad that Yuna is alive. So Jin says that the Mongols blocked the pass to Omi village, and he has to help clear the way. And he's asking for their help, and that Yuna's asking. So Takeshi says that he'll help, but he says that his people need a reason to fight and risk their lives. So Jin says that they can live in Fort Takeshi, which is a warm, Fort Kaminadake, which is a warm fort, instead of having to live outside for this cold winter. So that's enough, and they strike a deal. So then you survey from the cliff overlook, and it turns into a cutscene. So Takeshi says that the Mongol archers are guarding the gate, and the patrols ride in and out all day. So you can see Fort Kaminadake from here. And Jin explains that if they can get in from the north side, that Yuna will hit them from the south side. So Takeshi is once again, he seems especially interested that Yuna might be there. So Jin says that the fort was built around the cliffs, so they can use them to get inside. And Takeshi says that there's an abandoned woodcutter camp that supplies lumber to the fort nearby, and that's where they can scale up. And now the quest officially starts. So you have to travel there, and it's actually kind of far to the woodcutter camp, but you can just fast travel to somewhere nearby if you have that. But since you only just got to Act 3, you might not. So that's an interesting thing. You have to travel, and you may encounter other stuff along the way. So you arrive at the woodcutter camp, and it's on the western coast here. And Takeshi and the hunters are at the top of these frozen cliffs already. And he says it took them hours to climb up, and they need to move fast before the Mongols see them up there. So Jin can then get up by hopping on top of a wooden lean-to structure and then grappling from a tree branch and climbing up the stones. And the hunters are amazed by this. They're like, "Oh my God, how'd you do that? That's crazy." And yeah, it is. I mean, but hey, it's video games, and I'm the main character, so that's why. So yeah, then you start surveying the fort from the top of this cliff, and you find the roof of a tall central building, and Jin says, "Oh, we can control the high ground from there." And then you find some archers. You notice some Mongol archers on the left ridge, and you can clear them and put your own archers up on that ridge so that you can have good vantage point to shoot arrows from there. And then, at this point, that's all you do for the surveying, and you can start advancing on the fort. So what you do is you hop down from these cliffs and you sneak into the camp. But once you get to the edge of the camp where you can start the fight, you can kind of proceed however you want. You can sneak it for a while, take out as many guys as you want in stealth. Standoff is pretty epic because there's a ton of Mongols. But again, if you're wearing the Sakai family armor, I mean, you can get 5 or 6 standoff kills right away. And that's a pretty good way to go. So no matter what you choose, the quest is to clear the fort of Mongols. And at a certain point, a huge fight is just going to break out, and that's just going to happen. And once it does, the hunters will come in and start helping you and shooting from the ridge, and that's all very helpful. So after you clear this first group of Mongols in the initial part of the fort, you regroup with the hunters at the center of the fort, and you look at some dead civilians that have been impaled on spears, and Takeshi is horrified. And honestly, as a player and a viewer, I mean, you're horrified too. That's certainly how I felt. other than the fact that like you've just been so desensitized to it because it's been so like you've seen so much of this throughout this game, and again, it's just showing you like how horrific war is everywhere, but this particular conflict too. And so you realize that these are the woodcutters, that these are what happened to all the woodcutters, and that's a super sad outcome. And so at this moment, you and Takeshi, you're having this conversation, but you hear horns of a Mongol patrol coming, and Jin says that they'll ambush them when they come through. So you find a spot to hide. The rooftop of that central building is good, and then like they come through this narrow gate, and if you just shoot like 1 or 2 explosive arrows, you can take out like pretty much this whole patrol. So that's pretty easy peasy. So after you clear them, you then like proceed into this next section of the fort through this gate. And Takeshi then there's no Mongols there. You're just like walking for a bit. And so Takeshi says that he's heard that Lord Shimura has an army with samurai from the Shogun. And then he asks Jin why you're not leading them. And then you get a dialogue choice. And the dialogue choice is, I broke ties with them, or I'm scouting ahead. And if you say I broke ties with Jin, it's just saying he says, I have my own way to fight the Mongols, and, you know, my uncle has his way. I actually did, I'm scouting ahead. And, you know, Jin just says like, oh yeah, well, I'm just like, you know, I'm clearing the way for the army and everything. But either option leads Takeshi to realize that Jin is on his own and doesn't have any authority over giving them the fort. And at this point, Jin is kind of caught, but he just says that Shimura will be at his castle and he won't need this fort until the spring. So no matter what, like the hunters will be able to stay there and they'll, you know, level up a bit. That's good for them. And they'll have a safe place to be. So you keep advancing through the fort and you eventually hear a horn come from the southern Toyotama gate. And so you go to this lookout spot and you see a huge explosion at the gate with tons of Mongols running across a bridge in that direction. And so then you like climb up to the top of a gatehouse like that's nearby right there and survey the bridge leading to the next part of this fort. And so you realize that Yuna's attack with your allies has begun on the southern Toyotama gate into Fort Kaminadake. So as you're looking to the next section of the fort to try and get to the Toyotama gate to help Yuna get through, you see a Hwacha in the next courtyard. You realize that's super dangerous. So Takeshi suggests sneaking underneath this bridge with a grappling hook. Great idea. So yeah, you can find a tree branch and grapple underneath the bridge. This is the best way. You can also just run across the bridge and just get shot at if you want to, but I'd say the sneaking is the best way for this one. And so, yeah, just one quick thing, as you're like grappling underneath the bridge, you pass by some Japanese soldiers that have been hung and, you know, they're samurai and they're just dead and they're hanging underneath this bridge. And just like, there's just the minor details like this I really like that they have in this game because it just creates this super serious atmosphere. And again, especially in Act 3 with like the dark weather and everything, it just really makes you feel like, you know, this is not a fun time, that's for sure. So eventually you climb all the way under this bridge and then you climb up the cliffs on the side up to this next courtyard area and you can like sneak in. So you can climb on top of this big roof and from there you can stealth kill a bunch of people. You can use bows and arrows as they like walk on their guard routes. You could sneak, you could air assassinate them. And this includes the Hwacha guard. You can just like jump right down from this roof on top of the Hwacha guard. And then you can get on the Hwacha and you can just start shooting it at the guards in this courtyard because you're elevated above them where the Hwacha is. And this is, the Hwachas are the best in this game. So fun to use them and to like, you know, clear a bunch of enemies at once with it. And so once you start using the Hwacha, the hunters will attack and the battle will begin in this next courtyard. So you clear the first section of Mongols, which if you've done it with stealth, like, you know, there's not that many left. So then eventually a group of Mongol reinforcements arrive. But this is a great time for the Hwacha, where if you turn it, like they're all clustered together running in this one section of the courtyard. And you can just like take out most of them in 1 or 2 Hwacha shots right there. So at this point, you're then getting closer to the southern Toyotama gate, but you're not there yet. And you can hear explosions and battle sounds coming. And so Jin is saying, like, we got to get down there because we got to make sure that Yuna and the allies get through safely. So eventually you push forward, and when you arrive, you come across some Yarikawa samurai fighting the Mongols. And at this moment, Takeshi realizes that Jin is the ghost of Tsushima, and he says the ghost is supposed to be 10 feet tall, and Jin just tells him to keep fighting. And yeah, I was really excited for this. Right here, at this moment, this battle became awesome, where it's like, you just keep pushing forward, and eventually you come upon your friends in this next courtyard where they've blown open the gate of the southern Toyotama gate to Fort Kamidadake, and they're in this courtyard, and you're now meeting them from the northern side. So Kenji's there fighting, and Norio is there fighting, and Ishikawa's there. All the allies are there. Super awesome. And there's this like big battle happening with the Yarikawa samurai soldiers fighting the Mongols. And then Jin says, like, you know, to Yuna that they should have waited for him to open up the gate from the inside. And Yuna says that the direct attack was Moscow's idea. So this is an awesome battle. This is just an awesome battle that plays out, and you can just handle it however you want. You can just chuck explosives. You can just run into it and fight with your swords. There's just like lots of NPCs around, and just a really cool battle scene. And then as you arrive and you like rush in to fight, everyone screams for the ghost. And this is just a moment where I was like, yeah. To me, these are the best moments in this game. They're just so epic, and it's just awesome. So eventually you win this fight, you clear this courtyard, and Fort Kamidadake is all cleared of Mongols, and the road to Omi village is now cleared, and the Omi prefecture is cleared. So you and all your allies can now come through, and you get a cutscene where Kenji is freezing cold, and Jin tells everyone to get as many supplies as they can and ride to Jogaku Temple and to regroup there. And then Jin and Yuna start talking alone, and he actually asks her about Takeshi, and he implies that they were maybe romantic partners. And that's definitely kind of a little bit of a vibe that you've gotten from this so far. And then she just says, you know, that was her old life. And Jin asks if Takeshi and his group are more than just hunters. And she says, well, it depends on how you look at it. And Jin says, well, I told them that they can hold this pass for us, but I don't want bandits, and he really emphasizes bandits. He says, I don't want bandits attacking innocents escaping the Mongols. And Yuna says that they wouldn't do that because Takeshi knows how mad she would be. So again, this is just interesting. You know, it shows that Yuna and Jin have lived very different lives, and they know different people. And yeah, it's just showing that, like, part of Jin's journey is that, like,
hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
At Starbucks, we've more than doubled parental leave for full and part-time baristas, giving them up to 18 weeks of paid time off, so they can be there for early bedtimes, late nights, first laughs, and spend more time with the best company they know. At Starbucks, benefits like parental leave are just the start. Learn more about Starbucks industry-leading benefits at starbucks.com/partners.
He doesn't have the luxury of just like sticking to, like, in a way, being able to stick to this honor code that Lord Shimura uses is easy, because it's like, it's other people's lives that you're sparing, and there's always more of them, is the way Lord Shimura acts about it. But that's not the case, you know, when you have less resources and less soldiers, and, you know, you're just trying to get ahead in life however you can. So you don't have as many, you know, accessibility to resources and other things. So yeah, at this point, Jin then just says that Takeshi has been looking forward to seeing her, it seems like, and she very briskly says, well, he's seen me and now he can go. And that's the end of the quest, and that's it. Then you disappear and you head off to back to Jogaku Temple. And yeah, that's the last you see of Takeshi too. You don't see him again, I'm pretty sure, throughout the rest of the game. But yeah, so that was interesting. You get more characterization on Yuna. You get more background about her. You know, she was once a bandit, part of this group. Yeah, I didn't have too much judgment for her. I mean, again, it's like, it depends. Like, how are you being a bandit? Are you killing people on the road, or are you just like stealing from well-off farm estates or something like that? But you know, it never goes that deep, and that's fine. So now we'll move on to the next quest, which is called Gathering Storm. So you start this quest by speaking with Yuna at Jogaku Temple, your staging ground, and you arrive, and it's like snowy daytime. So Yuna and Jin start coming up with how to attack the Khan at Port Izmi. And Jin basically says, like, we need to know what Port Izmi is like. We need more info. We got to scout it out. So Yuna says they can take him, or she can take him to a good spot to scout it, and they leave right away. So then, like, you know, you get a cutscene, and Yuna and Jin are on this cliff looking out at Port Izmi. And Port Izmi is totally blanketed in snow, very cold. You can see Mongol ships in the harbor. Yuna says that they can have the best view, like a hawk's view from the lighthouse, if they can sneak there. So then the quest starts. So you start running to the lighthouse, and on the way, Jin starts saying that the Khan will sail for the mainland to attack, and they have to stop him now. And as you're running and passing like through this forest area to get to the lighthouse, you pass whole fields of like wolfsbane flowers. And you realize that the Mongols have been picking the flowers to use against the Japanese. And Yuna asks if you did the right thing at Castle Shimura with the poison, and then you get a dialogue choice. The dialogue choices are, it was a mistake, and it was necessary. So if you say it was necessary, Jin says, you know, that he took a risk and it saved thousands. And then Yuna says, like, well, it might cost thousands more lives if the Khan, you know, is able to use this poison. So I'm just going to take a quick second here. Once again, I just feel like I understand how it's like, okay, now the Mongols have another weapon at their disposal. And like, sure, maybe they can like poison wells or something. But there was a quest in Act 1 where the Mongols had poisoned a well at a farm stand without using the wolfsbane poison, and people died from it. So it's like they can already poison the wells, and I guess I just don't understand, like, yeah, and like, sure, is having a poison arrow, does that gonna like increase the rate of death of the enemy? Sure, but it's like, if someone's already getting shot with an arrow in this time, I mean, there's like a halfway decent chance that they're gonna end up dying anyway, whether it's from like infection or bleeding out, or like, you know, that's not even talking about if the arrow like hits you in a vital organ or something else. So I just like, they're really hammering home this whole like poison thing, and I like what they're trying to do with the story, and it's getting like very morally dicey and everything, but I just kept feeling like, I don't know, I just don't think it's like the biggest game-changing deal in the world, the fact that the Mongols have this poison now. And I feel like they had some other type of poison anyway. I'll have to do some research on this in real life. That could be an interesting episode, actually, about poisons in this time period. But yeah, so just an interesting discussion to have there. So eventually you start sneaking around a back way to the lighthouse, and you climb up some cliffs, and, you know, you assassinate a couple guards along the way, but, you know, you're in this like backwoods sort of area, making your way through it, and it's cold, scenic, very beautiful, just beautiful wintertime landscapes. And eventually you get near the lighthouse, and you start like sneaking through this Mongol camp at the base of the lighthouse. You are not allowed to get caught on this quest, so that's something. You can't just run in and fight. You have to sneak. You can assassinate enemies along the way, and I found that the back way up behind the lighthouse was best. So eventually you can sneak the back way, and once you get inside the lighthouse, you then find barrels full of the wolfsbane flowers ready for shipping. And Jin and Yuna basically have a cutscene conversation about how dangerous it is and how they have to stop the Khan. So you climb to the top of the lighthouse, and then you can scout from there. So you get a cutscene. Yuna and Jin recognize flat waves coming in, which means that there is a storm coming. And Jin says that they will leave the lighthouse dark so the Mongols can't use it when the storm hits. So then at this point, you can survey the port, and you find an open area that the Mongols left empty because they can't defend it in the camp. So you can find a coastal spot with sight lines to the Mongol ships if they had the Hwachas. And Yuna and Jin then talk about how, like, okay, so we've got this open area that the Mongol, with some buildings in the port that's left empty that we can ambush them from. We can get some Hwachas and hit the ships from this coastal spot. You notice a ridge that you might be able to get archers on, but then you realize that it won't work because the Khan can use horses to flank the archers there. And then finally, No, there's two things left. You can find birds flying in for shelter from the storm. There's like a ton of birds, so that's confirming that the storm is coming. And then you find the harbor master's house, where the Khan probably is. So then you get a final cutscene for this quest before we start the last quest of this episode. And this final cutscene is Yuna and Jin summarizing their plan to get weapons and like how they're gonna do their attack. And Jin saying like, we'll get the Huachas in, we'll have the army attack from the main gates, and I'll sneak in and try and like open the gates from behind, take out as many Mongols as I can, find the Khan. They're just like planning it out, and that's pretty much the end of this quest. So there's one thing I wanted to mention here that I just noticed as I was like putting all this together for this episode. How they're talking about using this storm as cover. It's a really cool way to tie it in to what actually happened in real life, which is that the Mongol fleet got hit by a typhoon, and like a huge part of the whole Mongol invasion force got like destroyed and killed at sea by the typhoon. And I just thought that was like it's like really cool how they like bend history a little bit in this game, but they still keep it rooted in something real. So in this case, it's like Jin is using the storm, and like they are the storm, but no matter what, like it's gonna end with like there's not really ever a full invasion of mainland Japan because of this storm hitting the Mongol fleet. And the odds of that happening in real life, that's just like so crazy that that's like a real fact in history. That's just so nuts. And it happened again 10 years later. Yeah, really, really crazy. And I don't know, I might do an episode or something about that more, but yeah, so now we'll start on the final quest that we're going to do for this episode. And at this point, we're getting kind of close to the end of the main story in Act 3, honestly. So the last quest is called Heart of the Jito. So you arrive at Jogaku Temple to talk with Yuna to start the quest. So at this point, it's not snowing anymore, but there's thunder and lightning, so it's very stormy. And Yuna says that Kenji found where they can steal the Huachas, and she's going to head there immediately. Jin says that they need more fighters. And right away, Yuna like gives him this look, and she's not happy. And Jin says that he's going to leave a message for Lord Shimura in his quarters back at Castle Shimura. So Yuna thinks this is a suicide mission. She thinks this is a terrible plan, and she's kind of not right. She's not wrong. I mean, if this wasn't a video game, that is probably a terrible plan. But so then the quest starts right there, and so Jin writes out the message, and you walk with Yuna out to get a horse at the stables, and you pick a new horse, and you actually now pick a new horse for the whole rest of the game. That you use for the rest of the game, and like after you beat the game to explore the rest of the map, and then you can go back to the rest of the Act 1 and Act 2. So here's the next thing, y'all. When you pick this horse, you can pick a new name. And for me, I picked Kage, which is Shadow. And I picked this because I was like, I started like full of hope and inspiration, like free the island and everything. And like, but after everything that's happened, I was like, hell nah, I'm the ghost now. And I'm committed to this. I am not happy with Lord Shimura. I'm mad at everybody. So now the horse is Kage. Rip and pepperoni Sora. So Jin says that he can get through the old hidden paths through the walls at Castle Shimura. So then at this point you can set out for it. And let me just say, Castle Shimura is so far from it is so far from Jogaku Temple. So you definitely have to like fast travel to anywhere as nearby as you can, and then just get the rest of the way there. So once you arrive at like the beautiful waterfall area at the back of Castle Shimura, and once you arrive to the spot, it turns into a flashback, and it's Lord Shimura asking a young Jin at this same exact spot why he ran away. And this younger Jin says that he wanted to catch an eel for dinner, but Jin, he has no fishing rod, so it's like there's no way to catch it, and Lord Shimura knows this. And so he asks Jin what's really happening, and Jin confesses that Ryuzo, at this point his young friend, said that Shimura would get rid of him once Lord Shimura had his own son. And it turns into this like touching moment where Lord Shimura tells Jin that Ryuzo's wrong, and that he will always stand by Jin's side. And that's the whole cutscene. And then, it cuts back to nighttime, and it like shows you that same exact spot at the waterfall in modern day, and it's Jin there like looking at it. So yeah, I thought that was just like an interesting moment for that cutscene, because it does just again remind you of the bond that Jin has with Lord Shimura. And even though I'm not a huge fan of Lord Shimura, you know, it is important to realize that this is a hugely important figure in you know, Jin's life, who became his guardian and taught him really almost everything that he knows about being a samurai and a grown person. So I appreciate that they had that in there. So yeah, eventually you then start making your way up towards the cliffs that you're going to scale to get into Castle Shimura from the back. And as you approach the waterfalls, you find a civilian fishing at the bottom of the falls, who tells you to be careful, and he says that the samurai are watching for him. So you climb up the wall. It's a pretty cool climb, and then eventually you arrive and you sneak through a crack in the outer wall. And so at this point you start making your way, sneaking in through the fort grounds, and you know, you just, same as like the rest of the game, you just go through tall grass, there's high ropes, you use roofs, and you know, you just can't get caught. You don't want to kill anyone here. I don't think you can kill anyone, but I'm actually not sure, because, and it's very morally dicey, because this is like, you know, you're Japanese people, so I don't know. Actually, I'm not sure if you can kill anyone. I just didn't. But eventually you arrive at the main gate spot, and this is a spot where like Lord Shimura launched the suicide attack at where they just charged the main gate of the main keep, and like, you know, Khotun Khan had the explosive carts ready. So when you arrive at this spot, there's two ways to do it. I actually just snuck underneath the same way you do to like end Act 2, where you can just like, you know, grappling hook underneath the bridge and scale the cliff. I just did that same exact thing again, and I just got through. But there's actually something else you can do. You can sneak into a like merchant's cart that they're searching, and you wait till after they're done searching it at the gate, and you can climb inside, and then the merchant's cart will cross the bridge. And so when it's crossing the bridge, and the bridge has now been repaired, you hear the merchants talking, and they say, well, Lord Shimura can't be too careful. That's why they're searching the cart, because the Straw Hats were turned traitors, so they don't know. And then they say, also, old Arataro, the silk trader, got his hands on the ghost poison and used it on Lady Kinu, his only business rival. So, and then they say that's why they searched the cart. So again, this was just a moment where I thought it was like a really cool twist in the story, because I just did not see this coming with the poison becoming so important or anything. But the fact that it's like turning into like, oh, now everyone's going to be using this poison and it's all because of Jin, I just was a little like, come on, give me a break, really? Like, I don't know, just because you use it once, like, how does the whole island know how to make this poison now? Like, I did this in secret. I mean, how is everyone figuring this out? It's just, I don't know. I was mad on Jin's behalf, but it is what it is. So, yeah, at this point, you then get through the main keep gate, and you can hop out of the car after everyone walks away. So then you're there, you're almost there. And you have to start now making your way up to Lord Shimura's quarters. And as you start doing this, he comes out to give this big speech to like the army that's gathered in the courtyard here. So it's kind of like a basic and rousing speech. There's not that much to say. He's just saying they're going to march north and find the hiding place of the Khan and trap him. Just kind of some usual rah-rah Lord Shimura stuff. But he says, and we won't be like a dishonorable ghost spreading terror. We will, you know, fight the Khan as honorable samurai. That's what I mean. I was like, wow. I mean, you really have to attack me, like, you know, in your speech to the whole army? It's just, oh, and just the whole spreading terror thing is like, yeah, we're spreading terror to the Mongols, like, because they're terrorizing us. Like, oh, and I'm a fighter, y'all. I just keep seeing this and being like, this isn't fair. But so basically, after this speech ends, you then like make your way to the main building where Lord Shimura's quarters are, and you climb in through this window. So at this point, Lord Shimura comes inside the building, and you see him and you hear him, and he's like being sad that Jin isn't there to be with him. So then you basically spend like, you know, the next section of this just making your way up this tall like keep where Lord Shimura lives. And so you get up to the next level, and you make your way up by like a combination of going on roofs, going inside windows, taking ladders up inside, and then going back out on roofs and like finding a way up from the outside and just doing that up each level. So at the next level, you hear Shimura talking to a samurai, And they say that the Khan is going to use the poison, and Lord Shimura says that the ghost has unleashed hell upon the land, with bandits using the poison against people, and now everyone's using the poison, and it's like terrible. And so yeah, that is what it is. So then you keep going up to the top floor through ladders to the roof, and there's lots of guards. And as you get closer to like the final spot at the top floor, you overhear some samurai say that the Mongols have suffered defeats at Granite Pass and Jogaku Temple. And then one of the samurai says, "We believe that Lord Sa," and he pauses and says, "the ghost is responsible for both." And so then Lord Shimura says that, their first priority is the Khan, and they'll like deal with him eventually. So yeah, one little Easter egg, you can actually enter your old room in this area, and there's like a bunch of supplies in there. There's not really that much to find, but Jin just wonders if he'll ever be welcome back there, and it's just like a little bit of an emotional scene. But so yeah, at this point, we're almost done with this quest. You climb to the top of this building. You have to do it from the outside. You get up to the very top of the roof, and then you can like go in through the top and then take a ladder down into Lord Shimura's quarters. You can place the message and leave it there for Lord Shimura to find. And at this point, you then get a cutscene of Lord Shimura walking in and finding the message. He finds the message and he calls for the guards and he says, "Oh my God, like Jin's here." And the message then tells Shimura to meet Jin at Port Izmi because that's where the Khan is and that they're going to be launching their own attack and that they should be united. And then it turns into a voiceover, which I thought was really cool. This hadn't happened in this game yet up to this point. And the voiceover, it says that, Jin is saying he'll always be Shimura's family, no matter what their differences are. And then this voiceover starts showing Jin honestly looking like Batman on a way distant rooftop, like looking at Castle Shimura. And, then Lord Shimura finishes reading the message and it shows Jin riding away. And then the quest ends with Jin riding away. And that's all you get from it. But it is setting up the rendezvous of Lord Shimura bringing the army to Port Izmi to link up with Jin's forces to defeat the Khan. And yeah, at this point, there's only 2 or 3 quests left in the main storyline. And so we're going to save those for one final episode on the Act 3 main story. That'll be episode 16, Act 3 main story, part 2. Y'all can expect that episode soon. Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, just as a recap of all this, I'll just say this. I'm not a huge fan of where the turn this story has taken because, as y'all know, I just find some of it a little bit ridiculous, where it's just like, I get that there's like a code of honor and everything. I just seriously doubt that like if one super soldier like single-handedly defeated this whole Mongol army, that everyone would be like, "Oh my God, the way you did it was terrible." Like, I think they'd be like, "Wow, we're free. Okay, thanks, dude." Like, I just don't think it would go down like this. But with that being said, I think that Sucker Punch and the game devs and like everybody and all the writers and everybody who worked on this, they deserve so much credit for trying to take the story in a direction that is unique and cool and just presents like a moral quandary. It makes you think, beyond more than just like, oh, cool action game that you play and, you just get cool battles and that's it. I do really admire them for trying to do that. I'll just say, like, I think I was having so much fun in Act 1 and 2 of just like fighting the Mongols and like getting the army together and everything, that like to have it take such an emotional turn was something I just wasn't ready for. But I think it is a cool story, and I think it's really worthy of like, recognition that they want to try and do something so different in the game and have something cool happen instead of just doing something simple, like just fight the Mongols, win, and that's the end of the game. And yeah, I thought there were some cool missions here. Obviously, Act 3, like the tone is so much darker and just the atmosphere is so much different. I do really like the winter cold atmosphere of it. I do think there's a different type of beauty when it comes to winter versus fall and some of the atmospheres you see and some of the sceneries you see in Act 1 and Act 2. But overall, yeah, I thought these were a solid 4 quests to get the game started, or Act 3 started. I'm really excited to have all your allies linked up in Act 3. And yeah, I mean, I can't believe that we are getting close to the end of the main story of Ghost of Tsushima on this podcast, but that wraps it up for episode 15. I hope all of you have enjoyed this episode, and hey, give us a 5-star review if you're enjoying the show on Spotify or the Apple Podcast Store. You can reach out to us on Blue Sky or join the Robots Radio Discord channel and join the Ghost of Tsushima channel there, and we can chat. All the links are in the show notes. You can send us an email or anything else. You'll find all that in the show notes. So just want to thank you all for listening, and I'll leave you with this. If you're going to invent a brand new, highly effective poison, do your best to make sure a rampaging Mongolian army does not find it, to use it against you and your fellow compatriots. Okay, y'all. I'll talk to you soon.